when it comes to the India story on AI, it will have to be led by states. The center can play an enabling role, but at the day, it is states like Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, Maharashtra, they will all compete, and hopefully the best will win, and companies across the world will get the best deal. Mr. Tyagarajan, give us a sense of how your government has been supporting companies in leveraging AI, making AI models. We were speaking to investors yesterday at the India AI Impact Summit, and they were saying India has now truly entered the model race. Where do we go from here? And if 1 year down the line, if we had to say that this summit was successful, what would be the benchmark?
Well, first, thank you for inviting me. I would say the role of the state is always to be an enabler. Innovation, true innovation, usually comes from outside. I'm happy that people like my fellow Tamilian CVK lead companies, or Perplexity, or many of the AI companies are led by people who were born and educated in Tamil Nadu and go on to innovate. But the state's job, I think, is to set some guidelines, to provide some incentives, and to try and keep up with the latest kind of developments, because as the Deputy Prime Minister said, it's very hard for us to regulate ahead of innovation. Innovation will always beat regulation. I came from the public markets. And so the job of the government, I think, on the one hand is to be an enabler. On the other hand is to continuously check what is going right and what is going wrong. And in particular, I would say in India, both in terms of what has already been mentioned in terms of the GPUs and the government of India providing the compute power, governments are the biggest source of data inherently, whether that's digitalized, whether it's tokenized, whether it's usable, whether it's in local language. These are all things we need to expand. But at a profound level, governments are the biggest source of data. So one of the things we do in Tamil Nadu is, first we try to improve our own databases, integrate them, use them to run the government more efficiently, to improve the citizen connect with the government, and to bring apps based on limited ambition, that is, with the purity of data, limited ambition in things like retinal health, oral health, in crop management, in wildlife conflict resolution, or predictive modeling, in these areas where we think that we can actually deploy this today for every citizen to use. But at the heart of it, I think the two principles for me will be that it has to be local language. We can't rely on English models, and so we have some efforts underway I can talk about in detail. And more important, that it should be voice-based, because we are still a country where not everybody has access to a text device or everybody's literate enough. In states like Tamil Nadu, we have great luxury because of a legacy of universal education stretching 100 years. So our access levels are very high. And yet we should do more for true social equity and inclusion.
Right. Now, you've spoken about multilingualism, and that's, of course, very important, because when it comes to artificial intelligence, you need to get the dialect right, you need to get the context absolutely right when you're giving a solution. So how are you linking incentives and the kind of support that you give to companies in the AI space? Is it going to be linked to how they could relate or solve problems in the local language?
Yeah, so far our policies, we were probably the earliest state to put in a fair use policy going back 6 years, and an updated incentive policy 2 years ago. So far our policies are not language dependent. Our efforts inside the government are very much focused on Tamil computing. We have a special division for both Tamil computing, language models in Tamil, as well as we partner with people like Bhashini across the country, who are doing local language and translation, as well as with Sarvam, where we make sure that Tamil data sets, Tamil models are an integral part of the system. But that's mostly in the government. At a private enterprise level, we just want them to innovate whichever way they can. And later, if we have to, we'll figure out how to prioritize Tamil. But the state, which is not looking for a profit motive, is the place where we focus on the language the most.
Right. We were speaking to you earlier the last couple of weeks, and you did tell us that you know so many of the Swedish CEOs. You worked with them in the past in some capacity or the other. How do you think we can leverage this relationship? The India-Sweden partnership, there are 600 Swedish companies in India. Which are some of the points of strength we should use?
Well, as the Deputy Prime Minister said, it is one of the smartest countries. It is one of the countries that has innovated the most in the area of in the era of the internet and now in the era of AI. And I think what we have is a market and a test bed that is not in the same league, right? And it's 8-10 million people in Sweden, and let's say a middle class of 400 million people or something in India, and a total population, if it's truly democratized, of 1.5 billion. So what we bring, I think, are very complementary strengths. Sweden has been and always will be a relatively economically strong kind of country and an innovator because of, again, I would say the commonality with Tamil Nadu is this focus on inclusion, social justice, equitable access, which we're doing, just as an aside, where we're ensuring now fiber optic to the home in every village so that we can get 100 Mbps speed for people to have video learning access and make it more equitable. And we have just started a AI-enabled laptop scheme, so every college student has with Perplexity and Copilot installed, so that our young people are basically in the right part of the game. But this inclusion and equitable access, I think, is common to us, but the scales are just completely different, right? Like, we have the possibility of testing in health, let's say. Our databases are so large that what you can extract from our health databases, you can't get anywhere else. And, in so many ways, the innovation and economic capital of Sweden, the scale and usability and last mile delivery that my friend CVK was talking about, and execution, I think, will be a good fit.
Right. Now, I would like to ask you, if GST was the big reform that happened in India last year, we reduced it to 2 rates and had 1 sin rate. What would be the big reform that India can bring for artificial intelligence?
Well, as you know, I was a member of the GST Council and a frequent critic of the system. So I would not like to use this reform as the benchmark for anything. This reform, in my mind, is still too little, too late. There's a lot more reform that needs to happen. We have just published a report in Chennai this morning in the Assembly, tabled it in the Assembly, where one chapter of which I had some input talks about at least 10 more structural reforms that will improve GST. So I won't set the bar based on GST reform. I would say that the government of India, the first thing they can do better is to work more closely with the states. We have seen politics too often divide, and winning elections cannot be the end goal. We win elections so we can implement better policy, so we can get better outcomes for the people. That seems to be lost. So to me, the government of India, if it worked more closely in every aspect, but particularly in game-changing points like AI, if it worked more closely with the states, then I think we would get much better outcomes rather than they do what they do and then we try to figure out how we fit into what they do.
Right. A question about how we regulate data. I think this is going to be a very important conversation for all companies looking to invest. We've signed a deal with the European Union. We've agreed on a deal, interim deal, with the United States as well. And digital trade, digital rules will be a part of the negotiations now. How do you think we should regulate our data in a manner that helps innovation but protects our citizens as well?
That's a very fine trade-off. But again, such regulations, as strong a federalist as I am, such regulations cannot be state by state. They have to come from the government of India. And so I defer to them, and both Mr. Vaishnav, who's a friend of mine, the secretary, Mr. Krishnan, who used to be my finance secretary when I was finance minister, I have faith that they will evolve the right kind of blend of, on the one hand, sovereignty and protection of citizens' rights, on the other hand, enough access so that innovators and thinkers of new ideas. Like one of the things I really like about Tamil Nadu, when I see these young people startups, they are not trying to be the next $1 billion or whatever world conquering engine. They use AI or they use advanced kind of techniques, automation, prediction, generation, in solving local problems in their neighborhood, about urban quality of life, about kind of water management, about waste management.
Right.
So I think there will be a trade-off, but at least at this point, to be honest, our data is like way backwards. We don't have enough data, we don't have it in the right format, and we are not in the scale. If you look at the English language models, they're processing a few trillion tokens. Best language we have, we're processing probably 100 billion, right? So we have to actually improve our data transformation and integration first, of course with privacy, but I think we're a long way off from that frontier of efficient utilization to safety. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Tyagarajan, for joining us here at our Global AI Lens event, giving us a perspective of what the success in the India-Sweden partnership could look like, and also the success for India in AI should be like as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much.